There we go.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just going to give a brief introduction and go over the agenda, and then we'll get right into it. So I'm going to start by introducing Solar Nova Scotia and talking about the meeting context and goals. We'll hear from the Department of Energy, and we're really happy that Haruka and Julia are joining us today to help provide some clarity and answer questions. We'll also hear from Solar Nova Scotia Industry Committee Chair Roby Douglas. We'll hear updates from project developers, and we'll have a guided roundtable discussion with questions to the group, and we're really hoping to get your input on some of the questions. So a little bit about Solar Nova Scotia. We were founded in 1980, and we have a mission to foster the development of solar energy in Nova Scotia. And so we are made up of a volunteer board of directors. We have 90 corporate members and no paid staff. And we advocate on behalf of the industry. We conduct events to bring people together and build connections. We conduct research from time to time and focus on public and industry education and promoting our members. And so we're really ensuring that the solar industry has a seat at the table when it comes to policy and the future of the electric grid in Nova Scotia. And so some interesting news of late. So there have been some new solar associations popping up. So I was pleased to present at the launch of Solar New Brunswick earlier this year. And I was just in PEI at the invitation of Efficiency PEI a couple weeks ago, and had the opportunity to speak to solar installers there about the formation of a PEI solar association. We've also been participating in national DER working groups led by CanREA, and including solar associations from across the country. And so I think there's a growing recognition of the benefit of having a solar industry association to provide a voice to the industry. So we have one of our key priorities is advocacy for the solar industry. And so we have an industry committee chaired by Roby that engages with our members and other stakeholders and advises the board on our advocacy efforts. And that's been very effective. And they're currently leading work with, we've hired a consultant to engage on a number of regulatory matters. And that work really makes a difference at the end of the day. Like if there's no kind of input provided, just the perspectives won't get heard and won't get incorporated. So some of the past advocacy successes, some people may be aware, but the Nova Scotia brought in the right to self-generate a couple of years back, which enables anybody to install solar on their homes without any net metering agreement. The net metering cap was raised to 1 megawatt. The solar industry successfully opposed the system access charge, and that would have caused major sort of detriment to the industry. And another thing we've long advocated for was the launch of the community solar program. Recently, we've seen interconnection improvements, and we're currently engaged on a distributed energy resources integration roadmap. And so we've hired Patrick Bateman, who's here today, to lead our engagement on a number of issues that are important to the industry. And I just want to put it in a brief, just shout out to the Solar Summit. So this is our event. It's managed on behalf of Solar Nova Scotia by Laura Ryan. It's this December. We have a really great lineup of speakers. And this is really the best way to support Solar Nova Scotia, be involved in the Solar Summit, consider exhibiting and sponsoring. The proceeds from that event go to enable us to hire consultants and legal and to support the industry. So that's really the best way. And also consider becoming a member of Solar Nova Scotia. Just want to see, can everybody hear me okay? So a little bit of background on the community solar program. It's a key part of the 2030 Nova Scotia Clean Power Plan, which outlines the province's pathway to reaching its goal by 2030 of phasing out coal from the electric grid. And this is part of the wider Environmental Goals and Climate Change Reduction Act that was passed by the province for Nova Scotia to be net zero by 2030, or 2050 rather. And so the Clean Power Plan calls for 100 megawatts, up to 100 megawatts of community solar by 2030. And that's an important part of the Clean Power Plan. So we were really happy to see the community solar program launched in 2024, which is providing a lot of benefits, including making solar more accessible to renters, low-income Nova Scotians, and underserved communities, people who might not have access to solar or be able to install solar on their homes or buildings, helping communities get involved in renewable energy development, saving subscribers money on energy costs, and it's really helping to build capacity for more lower cost solar in the future. So this is an important program, and we'll hear more from Julia and Haruka, and they'll talk about the new round of the program that's going to launch this fall. So, like I said, we've heard from our, well, I don't know if I've said it yet, but we've heard from our members some of their input on the community solar program. The province right now is currently seeking input as they make some adjustments for the fall launch of the program. And so we decided that the best way to provide input would be to organize this roundtable discussion, invite members of the Department of Energy, Nova Scotia Power, project developers, Solar Nova Scotia members, municipalities, and more, and provide constructive recommendations. And really, this is an opportunity to share information and provide clarity on the program. So our end goal of this is to contribute input and develop a discussion paper to enable the success of the community solar program. So just to briefly set some ground rules, we really want to keep this a positive discussion. And so really asking everybody to be respectful. Everybody here wants to see this program succeed. And we also want to keep the discussion constructive. So if you're sharing sort of challenges and barriers that you're facing, like we'd love to hear like potential practical solutions. So like an example of a non-constructive solution would be to say, well, we need to start redesign the program from scratch. And like that's obviously not a practical thing to do. And so we'd really like to hear like practical input that could make the program work even better. And we really want to hear from you all. And so there'll be plenty of time to ask questions, and we're hoping to hear a lot of input just to make this session as useful as possible. And yes, we will develop a discussion paper and share our input with the Department of Energy. So I'm just going to pause there and stop sharing, and I'm going to ask Haruka and or Julia to kind of a brief overview on the community solar program and the upcoming round. They're great to work with, and we're really pleased to have them here. And I want to congratulate Haruka for getting she has a new position with Net Zero Atlantic, I think still with the Department of Energy, but yeah, I really appreciate them being here and their willingness to answer questions and provide clarity about the program. So maybe I will let you have the microphone, Haruka.
Great. Thank you, David. Good afternoon. Yep. I'm Haruka Aoyama. As I was just introduced, I manage day-to-day operation of the community solar program, and I am here today with my colleague Julia, so I will let her introduce first.
Thank you, Haruka. Hi, everyone. My name is Julia Lindsay, and I am the co-project manager of the community solar program. We look forward to hearing from everyone.
I'm having difficulty hearing you, Julia. I'm not sure if others are having the same.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
Oh, okay, great. Should I start over?
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Julia Lindsay. I am the co-project manager of the community solar program. I'm happy to be here today and to hear from everyone.
Great. We are so grateful to be here because, as David said, this is perfect timing for us to hear your experiences, the challenges and opportunities that you're seeing, so that we make sure that we hear your thoughts, your experience, and incorporate that in our program review that we are doing right now. So just a quick update on the program. As David mentioned, it's been almost 1 year and a half since we launched the program. As of now, we approved 4 projects totaling 9.2 megawatt. The program capacity is 100 megawatt, so that means there's still 90 megawatt for future applicants to fill. We are currently on pause with the plan to reopen the program this fall. This pause was intentional to allow for the full program review, also do the project finance benchmark updates, and also to reform the evaluation committee. So those 3 big updates are coming. So what's next for us is, if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe to our email list, because we have a plan to send out some important updates about the program in coming weeks. I will drop the email address in the chat, so please just send us a quick email so I make sure you're on the list. I think that's all the updates that I wanted to give today, but as I mentioned, more updates are coming in coming weeks, so just stay tuned, and we are really looking forward to hearing from you today. Thank you, David.
Great, thank you very much, Haruka. I thought I'd also, I know Adam LeBlanc is here from Net Zero Atlantic. I thought I'd just give him the opportunity to introduce himself briefly, just so people can put names to faces. So, Adam, do you want to just kind of briefly discuss your role? Oh, we're getting some feedback here. You know.
Yeah. Thank you, David. My name's Adam LeBlanc. I am working in partnership with the Department of Energy. I'm with Net Zero Atlantic as the grant manager for the Community Solar Program. So my role, or Net Zero's role, is to we are managing the projects once they've been approved through the province, and we're dealing with the disbursement of the grants, and then also the management and making sure that once it's been approved, that all the projects are going to be successful.
To add on to that quickly, so the grant that Adam is talking about is the minister's commitment of 10.5 million to the Net Zero Atlantic to run the Community Solar Capital Funding Program. So this funding program is available to approved project owners, but also among approved project owners, Minister will choose which project we will fund. So that's what the Adam is helping the departments running the program.
Great. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen again. And we'll get into the roundtable discussion, because I'd like to give plenty of time for discussion. And so what we were thinking is just going through different aspects of the program and asking some questions and just opening the floor. We are transcribing this meeting, and so please share your input, and yeah, we'd like to get a good discussion going. So to start off with, here's a picture of some of the existing community solar gardens in Nova Scotia. They're not all part of the community solar program. The one on the top right is Nova Scotia Power's 2 megawatt solar garden in Amherst. And then there's 3 from, whoops, let's see where it went there. There's 3 that were developed by Area, who worked with the municipal electric utilities. And the one on the bottom right is the New Dawn Pine Tree Park installation, I believe, which is 550 kilowatts in Sydney. And so that was actually the first project to be developed as part of this program. And so it's a great example of a successful project. Okay, so we're going to go through different aspects of the program, from interconnection and technical feasibility to regulatory, permitting, financing, capital costs, subscriber engagement, and some other areas. So I'd like to put these questions out to the group and just just raise your hand and we'll get the discussion started. So the first topic is around interconnection and technical feasibility. We do have some representatives from Nova Scotia Power here as well. But the question is, how are you navigating the interconnection process with Nova Scotia Power? Have you encountered unexpected technical or grid-related hurdles post-feasibility study? Are there challenges with the full system impact study after program approval? And then if there's any other items you want to address related to this topic, please feel free to do that as well. So I'll just put it out to the group and raise your hand, and then we'll just go in order of people raising their hand. So I'll keep the screen shared just so we know it. And if you want to, when I call your name, if you want to identify yourself and your company and provide a little background of like, are you working on a community solar project? Like, what's your involvement with the industry? If you could share some information about your community solar project, I think that would be helpful. What's the size of it? Like, what's the location of it? Stuff like that. That would be great. So let's go to David Horseman. And I think you're muted. I think you're muted, Dave, or Devin, rather.
We'll try that. How's that?
That's it. That's better. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, my name's Devin. I'm up at the Lookoff near Canning, we're exploring and looking to get started on a 0.5 megawatt to 1 megawatt project. Self-started. None of us are in the industry. This would be a sort of first time experiment in that place. It's a group of 3 of us to start. We sort of priced out the hardware and done the feasibility study on our end as far as like being able to generate the amount of power in the space that we have. What we're wondering is how important this preliminary feasibility study is. Like, how do we know going in whether or not it's a worthwhile step to take? Given the cost, that's a question that isn't easy to answer for us with the information that's out there.
Okay, thank you. Haruka, would that be a question that you would want to
Yeah,
take?
I can speak from the program side, but I won't be able to advise from the technical side. So from the program side, yes, the preliminary assessment is required studies as a part of the application package. So all the project owners have to do it. And the reason for that is because it will help inform you how much it might cost to interconnect. And if there's any issues or upgrade need happens by connecting to the specific point of connection, the PA will tell you what the potential upgrade needs are and so on. And that kind of drives the cost of estimate for the interconnection. So this preliminary assessment is the key piece of information and report to inform us, the evaluation team, what the feasibility of the project. So
Okay.
From the program perspective, yes, it's required.
Got it. Yeah, I think I might have confused this fee with the earlier smaller fee that could be used for sort of a preliminary application review. And maybe that's what I have the question about.
Okay, so before preliminary assessment, yes, I think there's a one even before preliminary study. I forgot how to say the exact study, but that is the optional for us. So program does not require that. So yeah, the program does not require that.
All right. Thank you. And are there perspectives from other folks that have done this program in the past on whether that smaller, earlier review is necessary?
Does anybody want to take Devin's question there? Who might have an answer?
Yeah, good afternoon. It's Glenn Boone with the municipality of Cumberland. We did both, Devin. We did the preliminary, I'll call it in the chat, it's almost a scoping document. The application to do that was about $750, if I remember correctly. And that just brought us to make a decision whether we would go further to the larger feasibility study, which we did as well. It's obviously a big price tag to do that for a smaller project for sure, but we did kind of the scoping review to just at least told us that there was opportunity where we would put our project. Our project was looking to be based in Spring Hill, Nova Scotia here. And so, yeah, that's what we utilized. We used that for scoping, which was, I believe was around $750. And we did this through our, we worked with Area on our scoping, but all of our projects before we submitted to the program. So hopefully that helps. We found it was useful to vet out whether we should go to the larger feasibility study because it's a bigger number, obviously. So we did utilize that. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Great. Thank you, Devin. Jonathan, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Jonathan Gravel from ABO Energy. We were developing several projects for the community solar program. We did an open house for one of them in Cape Breton, presented to municipal council as well. For us, we put in those preliminary assessment requests into Nova Scotia Power. We used that map that they put on, the distribution capacity map. But what we found was the lines we want to connect to, maybe the distribution map says, okay, there's 5 megawatts here, but there would be a min load on that line that for us was always much lower. And that really meant that we couldn't connect the amount that was shown on the map. So for this one project we had in Cape Breton, the map shows, oh, there's 5.5 megawatts of capacity, but the minimum load is 0 because apparently there's 2 megawatts of generation somewhere on there. It must be another solar or a small turbine or something. But anyways, it kind of sets you back because then, it looks like the capacity is there, minimum load 0. And what Nova Scotia Power is saying is you're going to generate more than the minimum that is ever on this line. So we want to do transmission studies, and it's going to go spill onto the transmission system. So that's kind of a bit of a barrier. And that happened actually on every one of our projects.
I know we have a number of folks from Nova Scotia Power online. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that or.
Hi, Dave. Marwan here, interconnection engineer with Nova Scotia Power.
Hi, Marwan.
Hey. So I'll start with the Devon questions first. So the interconnection process is quite streamlined. We have the Nova Scotia Power distribution generator interconnection procedures. You can kind of get a sense of the available capacity based on the distribution hosting capacity map, which Jonathan Gravel was talking about. The preliminary assessment would give you kind of a rough idea about the project, estimated costs, required upgrades. And then there would be a set of milestones that would need to be met. Then the project would enter the distribution system impact study stage. The deposit for the system impact study, for the distribution system impact study, is $10,000. That $15,000 deposit that's shown on the presentation there is associated with the feasibility study for the transmission interconnections, which the majority of the community solar projects would not be falling under. They're mainly distributed energy resources. So really, those are kind of the study costs. The project costs would be also outlined in the distribution system impact study, which are completed within defined windows. Those windows are available on the Nova Scotia Power Oasis site. And so this is it on the process. We can definitely send information there enough as follow up there to Haruka, and Haruka can probably share those. On the distribution hosting capacity and the preliminary assessment. So the distribution hosting capacity is there to kind of provide insight very at a very early stage of the project. So probably the developer would have completed their studies and just looked at probably the solar panels and the inverters and have a preliminary design. The preliminary assessment would give you the kind of the available capacity on that transformer, on that interconnection transformer, depending on the zone. So yes, there might be some not inconsistencies, but the numbers wouldn't match, but they're not expected to. That's why we have the preliminary assessment to kind of look into it with just a bit more detail. Obviously, the ultimate detail goes into the system impact study, and that's why John, sometimes those numbers would be a bit far.
Yeah. So looking for suggestions on how to optimize this a little bit. Like if we had a map of the min load instead of this expected capacity, it would be more helpful, because min load is actually what is available to us to kind of fill up to before we do transmission studies.
Right.
So that would be helpful.
The feeder hosting capacity is the min load on that distribution, on that interconnection transformer in the distribution zone. It's just that it regularly changes based on the if there are loads within the distribution zone. It's really a snapshot of the system at that current time. It doesn't really reflect that you're going to see the same number in the PA. So if you take, like, if you were to look at a specific zone expecting a certain number from the hosting capacity, the preliminary assessment wouldn't necessarily show you the same number there. It can be close, it can be far off. It depends on the system conditions at the time of performing the study, right? And the historical data on that feeder as well.
I guess if they were a little closer, it'd be good. For us, I mean, the difference was quite large on all of ours. Like just the one that I'm referring to in Cape Breton, there was 5.6 megawatts shown there, and there was 0 min load. So that's, it might have helped us pick a different location to start off, something like that.
No, understood. And that's why we also present the option of a pre-application assessment, which is which can give the interconnection customers an idea about the estimated costs and the loading as well. And if there is available capacity, and you don't have to commit the $750, it's $450 to get that study. So if I think if any developer is unsure about progressing the project, it might be a good idea.
Throw that in. Yeah, I mean, that's what.
Sorry, it's I said $450, it's $300. My bad. Yeah.
Great. I'm just going to keep us going here just to be on schedule. But thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Marwan, for that. I'm gonna Chaz. Do you have a question here?
Yeah, my main concern currently, we've done a wireframe on phase 1, phase 2 of setting up the kind of put the cart before the horse, seeing what type of capital is available for this type of investment in a partnership group. And we have discovered that there's a great interest in the capital markets for investing in these types of power purchase agreements with Nova Scotia Power. I had a question with Julia in the past with regard
just to cut you off real quick here, like, is this related to the interconnection and technical feasibility study? Because we do have a section on.
Oh, okay, no,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, one quick question with regard to interconnection.
Yep.
Is it going to be simpler to front end solar garden with battery for dispatchable distribution, or just let it go solar right to the grid? That's my technical question.
Does anybody want to take that question?
I would say it's outside the scope of the conversation today because we're just talking about community solar.
No, but that's what I'm saying. If I built a solar garden, would it be better technically to put a battery in front of it before it hits the grid for make the energy more dispatchable?
Yeah, I
I would agree
understand
with
your
Ro-
question. It's just that's the community solar program is geared towards just straight generation assets, not dispatchable assets as you've described.
Oh, okay. That's all I need to know. So I don't want to do that in here. That's perfect.
Thanks, Chaz.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roby.
Thank you.
Glenn Boone.
Yeah, I left my hand up, but I must have went down after I just commented on the other section. A couple of things that might be helpful and clear in the project. I know folks talked about the mapping. I agree with that as kind of a preliminary way to look at where you're scoping out your site. I mean, we picked a particular site because we have lots of land, and our thought was that it was near a couple of potential transmission lines or transmission routes. But it was just about the timing, I guess. And I know the program probably had a number of folks asking for doing the initial scoping and then the feasibility study. It was just the timing. We had a few delays in getting our answers. It kind of moved, the goalpost moved a few times. And not to say that we didn't, I think, get answers. I think we eventually did. I'm not the technical person on the project. I'm the kind of project, I guess, business lead, I guess, for the municipality. It was a little unclear when we actually did for the preliminary feasibility study, the 15,000 that's on the screen. Some of it was considered a deposit, and it was a little unclear of what determined, what determines that amount and what could possibly come back, and Nova Scotia Power's work on these things, and what was scoped out and what did it take to produce the answers. We end up having two scoping documents because we had potentially two different, I guess, connections. We could come from two different distribution lines. I guess in some ways we were lucky to have that in our community, but also it required two different scopings. So it may have made our feasibility study a little more complicated as well. So those are more comments and questions, I guess, just timing to get these things turned around, and just clarity on what's within that, the larger deposit you make and how that might come back to the program applicant.
Thank you, Glenn. Marwin, do you have any comments there for Glenn?
Okay. So really study what, like, I can't comment on that just right at the top of my head because I need to look at the project and the associated designs and the studies completed. So I don't really have any comments on the go, really.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess it's maybe a way to, it's a takeaway more than anything, Marwin, I guess, to figure out what the guidelines are along that, as opposed to municipality and our partner, which was town of Truro, send a deposit check with saying this is what's required. That's the advice area was giving us as part of the project management, and then just kind of understanding how that kind of how the process works. I mean, we more or less sign an application, send the money, and ask them to do the work, and got some of the data back. It's just kind of understanding maybe a little bit more detail for others that are not as advanced as we were at this point. So probably a takeaway more than anything, I think, David.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Okay, we got two more people and then we'll wrap up this section and move on to the next section. But David Ango.
Yeah, look, we've had some experience doing some class 2 applications, and we've discovered a few things that have changed in the interconnection, that being the fast track rules. Now, we had the pleasure of working with the whole team at Nova Scotia Power and getting, the first ones, kind of through the gates. And the fast track rules allowed us to put either 500 kilowatts on the 1247 kilovolt or 1 megawatt on the 24 kV distribution, and it allowed us to replace the class 2 fee with a $2,500 fee. The team at Nova Scotia Power had alluded that the fast tracking rules would apply to the community solar interconnection. So are we able to replace the $15,000 feasibility study with the $2,500 fast tracking fee? That's my only question.
I can probably answer that as well, Dave. So it depends. For the project to go through the IBR fast tracking route, yes, there is a capacity restriction, which is 0.5 megawatts on connecting to a 12 kV line, and I think less than a megawatt connecting to a 25 kV line. But there are also other criteria that need to be met for the project to be classified as eligible for IBR fast tracking. It would be determined really in the preliminary assessment. I can't comment of if every community solar project is eligible for fast tracking. If it's available, if it's more than a megawatt, not likely. If it's more than a megawatt, then no. If it's less than a megawatt and connecting to a 25 kV feeder, maybe. But it's not just the capacity constraint. There is also conductor limitations. If there is any step down transformers in the zone, so we take a closer look at that in the preliminary assessment, and we advise the interconnection customer if the project is eligible for IBR fast tracking.
Okay, thank you.
Dave, if I can jump in on this for a sec, just Roby here. I think there might be a bit of confusion in the group here around the transmission interconnection process versus the distribution interconnection process, like the $15,000 fee that's in relation to a transmission study, not a distribution study. And certainly the majority of the community solar projects, I think, are planned to not incur a transmission study. So it might be worth having Julia or Haruka kind of weigh in on the kind of intent there and the timing of when a applicant would be expected to put up, the $10,000 deposit for the distribution system impact study agreement, which my understanding is that is after a PPA award. So the program is, and Julia and Haruka, correct me if I'm wrong here, the program is not anticipating, or I think it's actually from a regulatory standpoint, you are not allowed to enter into a DSIS agreement until you have your PPA, and that helps keep the barrier to entry relatively low for program applicants. So they're not expected to put up a $10,000 or $15,000 deposit. They're just expected to put up the $750 preliminary assessment fee. So maybe Julia and Haruka, could you confirm that?
Yeah, I can confirm the steps you just outlined for the DGIP. So that's for the distribution. That's correct. To participate in the actual studies, one of the milestones the project owner has to meet is having the PPA. So we will issue PPA first, and then you can enter into DGIP study group to continue with the actual feasibility studies. Julia, I don't know if you want to step in to talk about how we are not like a guiding, but like in terms of implication of going through DGIP pathway or transmission pathway. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, just that we strongly encourage everyone to go through the GGIP process. The transmission interconnection process is much, much longer and more expensive, and impacts the overall capital cost of your project, which can make it more difficult for you as a project owner.
Great. Okay, Dean, last question on this section, and then we'll move on for commenter.
Okay, yeah, not so much a question. Dean Chalmers was the project manager on the Pine Tree Park array and working with New Dawn on their next array. This may be relevant to Glenn's comments earlier. We went through the interconnection process before it was streamlined as much as it is now, and it was good. I mean, working with Nova Scotia Power people was great. The only issue we've had, and I'm not sure again if this is what Glenn was referring to, is the reconciliation afterwards of the costs has been, we're still waiting for those, and so that's something I think Nova Scotia Power could improve. And I know it's probably been impacted by the cyber event. So you know, we started this project in COVID, and we're finishing it in a Nova Scotia Power cyber event. So the fun never stops.
David, can I jump in? I know you're trying to end this section, but
Sure.
Our kind of understanding of today's role objective was to try to get feedback into the program as opposed to maybe directing new applicants, but it's all good discussion. Are we saying now in the program that if you were looking to do it now, you wouldn't do the feasibility study until you had the PPA? Is that what I heard? Because that would be challenging, because how would you know what your interconnection costs might be to submit an application with your full capital if you didn't do the feasibility study? That's how it was kind of laid out to us. So that's just a little confusion for me. Maybe I heard that wrong, but
In the interest of time, you can send an email directly to us and we can consider what the question is. I think that would be the best path forward.
okay, thank you.
Great, thanks everybody. Are there any questions or comments related to regulatory and permitting constraints? Environmental assessments or permit timelines delayed your proposal process? Can you quantify these delays? Is there any comments on this topic? Dean, do you have a comment? Your hand is up.
No, that must just be up from before. Sorry.
Okay. Glenn, do you have a comment or question?
Well, it's a little unique for us because we are the municipality as well. So we identified the need to do zoning changes if we were to go forward. Some of the land was zoned industrial, some of it was not. So I think the process for most municipalities and for those in general that need any kind of zoning change is that, you know, a really fast municipality is 4 to 6 months to get a rezoning. So we sometimes do it a little faster, but it's all regulated by Provincial Municipal Government Act. So just for folks that are getting into that, just give yourself time, I guess, is the comment I would make. We did environmental and some geotechnical for our project, but we weren't told we needed a full environmental assessment. If that's different, and maybe it's something that could be discussed here now, but we weren't given the impression we needed a full EA. We did our environmental review and we had that done with Strum, but yeah, I'm not sure what else was maybe thought about here.
Peter, do you have a question or comment?
Yes, thanks, Dave. I just want to mention, for any benefit of anybody that's on the session that's not familiar with where HRM landed with the regional plan, in terms of basically blanket prohibition against solar in the entire municipality other than rooftop, in order to be able to have a off-site solar facility. You need to be on a piece of land that's zoned commercial or industrial. Basically, in the outer reaches, the areas that are zoned. I think it's or designated rural, commuter, and resource. So there's a complete disconnect between what the HRM Regional Planning Group came up with to be permissive for solar fields of any nature and what they put forth in the regional plan. They did provide that solar could be done via development agreement, but anybody that has any experience dealing with HRM knows that's literally a 2 or 3 year long process. So that's just want to point that out as a major obstacle on top of everything else.
Great, thank you for that input, Peter. Dean, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, just a comment on the environmental assessment. We had an environmental screening report done through Communities, Cultural Tourism and Heritage. And it was minimal cost and pretty quick turnaround time. And I think it was really quite worthwhile. It might point out other things you need to do, but it covers a pretty broad scope.
Great, thank you for that, Dean. Joel.
Hey Dave, I just wanted to chime in quickly on Peter's comment there. Peter, I believe you were referring
Joel,
to.
do you want to? Sorry, Joel, just to interrupt. Do you want to introduce yourself and just kind of provide a bit of context of your involvement with the community solar program?
Yeah, sure, I'd be pleased to. So yeah, Joel McNeil here. I'm one of the principals of Trimec Engineering, and we're an engineering firm headquartered in Sydney, Cape Breton, and we have an office in Halifax as well. And we're actually proud to be part of a development team together with Powerbank, just had a recent name change. Powerbank Corporation out of Toronto. And so we've been fortunate to be awarded 3 of the current 4 projects that are going ahead under community solar. We have one in Annapolis County, CBRM, not far from where I am. And we have one in HRM, Eastern Shore, as well. So back to Peter's comment about HRM regional planning strategy. My understanding is that was just rejected by the Minister of Municipal Affairs a few weeks ago, which might be a good thing if it was as hard on solar as you were just describing. I wasn't aware of that. But anyway, we've obviously been in close contact with planning folks at HRM on our HRM project, and I just thought I'd throw that out there. They might be back to the drawing board on their latest iteration of the regional plan, so hopefully they can get a little more, maybe remove some red tape for community solar development. Anyway, I just thought I would add that comment.
Yeah, thank you for that context, Joel. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, let's move on to let's see here. Financing and capital costs.
Sorry, Dave, just like one last thing on the municipal side.
Sure.
One thing that we saw that was very successful in the convened days for wind projects was a blanket, like $1 per megawatt municipal tax, or that was levied on the wind projects. And right now across the different municipalities, there's different ways that not only projects are permitted by land use bylaws and zoning, but also how they will be taxed. And in our view, as Natural Forces Solar, municipal taxation of these assets is a good thing, as long as it's a reasonable amount that the project can afford. It's a benefit to the community that's hosting the project. So I guess just something for consideration for the province would be, looking into what was done 10, 15 years ago for wind projects, and considering if there's a blanket approach that could be deployed throughout Nova Scotia for all the municipalities, so that the developer community has certainty, and as well there's transparency to the public within each of those municipalities about what the public good is going to be in the long term as these projects pay municipal taxes, and that it's the same across the board.
Great, thank you, Roby. Yeah, so moving on to roundtable, financing and capital costs. How are you managing upfront capital needs, especially for feasibility studies and construction? Are you finding the provincial funding sufficient? Have financing partners shown confidence in community solar models? Any concerns about the PPA structures or subscriber credit mechanisms? And Glenn, I'll go to you.
Let's see if others may jump in first. David?
Okay. We'd like to hear from more people if there's others out there with that want to share.
I definitely have some comments and questions, but I want to see what others might be experiencing first.
Okay. Maybe we'll go in order. Dean, do you want to chime in?
Sure, just a comment on the last bullet there. It was a little disappointing that the PPA rates and the subscriber credit mechanisms are fixed while all the other project costs go up over time. And that, yeah, just that comment.
Great, thank you, Dean. Joel McNeil?
Yeah, that I had the same comment as Dean there, and that question comes up a fair bit as we've done lots of community public meetings on our projects, and that one does come up over and over. And just personally, as a Nova Scotia Power ratepayer, I tend to agree with the comment that over time, a 2 cent per kilowatt hour discount is likely to get watered down by applications for rate increases, and those happen with fairly predictable frequency. So that would be something I would encourage Department of Energy to, if possible, revisit maybe on a future iteration or future round of community solar, to see if there can be some form of like a minimum escalator tied to inflation or something like that, to keep that a meaningful discount available to ratepayers. So that's my only comment.
Thank you, Joel. Abhimanyu. Sorry if I mispronounced that.
No, that was right. Hey, David.
Okay, great. Hey.
I can quickly introduce myself as well. I am Abhi. I work as a climate change sustainability manager with the municipality of District of Lunenburg here in South Shore. Similar to Glenn's situation, we are working on a joint application where we have partnered with 2 other municipalities, working on our own retained area as our project manager, putting together a 7 megawatt project application for the program. Specifically, I concur with other comments made by Jewel and other folks regarding the 2 cents per kilowatt may not be sufficient, given the more delays in the processing would also incur more expenses, the project capital side. And speaking of capital side, like the financing side, I think one of the big hurdles we face in our project development probably would be well known by now, is like the municipalities, if they're working on their own, could relatively be a little bit of at a disadvantage, given they're ineligible for federal ITC credits on their own, which could significantly impact CAPEX. It could significantly lower down our capital costs. That's, I think, the one thing that we're trying to overcome now is like trying to figure out what other opportunities we may have to explore in order to overcome that hurdle to still be able to make a competitive application or bid to for the program.
Great, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Chaz.
My concern with the PPA, again, I echo what Joel said with regard to the 2 cents being a benchmark that will be watered down by future rate increases. And also, one of the aspects of the PPA that it only involves Nova Scotia Power. So hypothetically, you put 5 megawatts up and you want to have province-wide participation in your community solar project, and it precludes the members of area, for instance, from being, say, someone Rick wants to get a rate, and the 2 cents is you know, say they're a friend of mine that wants to support my efforts in community solar, but they can't participate because they're not a Nova Scotia Power customer, or they're a Town of Berwick customer. So that actually silos any participation strictly to Nova Scotia Power billable customers. And I also, I'm an outlier from the telecom business from the old days, and the whole idea that you're only given 2 cents as the discount on a roll forward basis, is there any thought to flat rating people? Because the PPA allows Nova Scotia Power to garner profits from behind the meter, which is strictly outlawed when renewable to retail was formed back in 2014-15. They were not allowed to recover costs from behind the meter. So on top of the 25-year, $345,000 PPA administration fee, they continually will profit from behind the meter activity generators that were previously not allowed when the renewable to retail marketplace was formed, and those rules are not applied here. So I'm wondering, is there, I'm not asking for a complete teardown of the way the billing works, but I'm asking for a more fair and equitable approach to allowing true discounts for community solar participants. Because, I know how much it costs to produce solar. I know how much it costs Nova Scotia Power to buy it from me. But when they resell it, they're still continuing to profit from behind the meter generation on a go forward basis, because it's only set at 2 cents a kilowatt hour. Is there some sort of procedure by which this can be re-examined? Because we all know that the rates in Nova Scotia are going up and up and up, and that's my 2 cents on that.
Great, thank you, Jess. Aviv, do you want to introduce yourself and
Sure. Thank you, David. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, first of all, for arranging this this session today. I'm Aviv Shalgi. I'm the CEO of Solar Simplified. We're actually based in the US. We're one of the larger community solar subscriber organizations in the country. We're also one of the partners, like Joel, with PowerBank on the 3 community solar projects that got approved last year. So we're going to be helping with everything related to subscriber acquisition and management and allocations with Nova Scotia Power, etc. So the actual day-to-day, not the comment I wanted to mention, but first I will also want to reiterate what Joel mentioned earlier, and some of the other folks as well, that the 2 cent discount, just a flat discount that doesn't escalate or is not tied to inflation or anything, is a little bit going to be challenging, maybe 5 or 10 years down the road. Right now, a 2 cent a kilowatt hour discount is meaningful to subscribers, especially kind of everyday households. If we're trying to think about 5 or 10 or 15 years from now, obviously everything's going to cost more money, because that's just how inflation works. It's going to be just tougher to maintain subscribers in the long run. So that's kind of the first part of my comment. I think the second part regarding financing specifically is that the credits are not entirely like how this will actually work, the 2 cents a kilowatt hour, and how do we enroll subscribers, how do we validate the subscribers can sign up with Nova Scotia Power, just the day-to-day mechanisms, which I understand that part's missing, and that's going to hinder financing, whether with our projects or other projects down the road, because if people can't underwrite the risk of is this going to work or not, and I've seen this happen a lot here in the other side of the border in the US, it's very hard for financing to finance projects, especially long-term financing, when we don't actually know if we can, who can subscribe, who can't subscribe, what's going to happen, how quickly is Nova Scotia Power going to accept people, et cetera, et cetera. So I think a little bit more clarifications on that front would be very helpful, on our existing projects and future projects. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Aviv. Roby.
Okay.
Oh, Julia, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I really appreciate everybody's comments, and I certainly hear everything you're saying. With regards to the processes for subscribers with Nova Scotia Power, I can certainly assure you that this is something that we've been working with them on from the very beginning. And Nova Scotia Power is actually working on documenting those processes so that we can provide them to project owners. That's not something that we expect project owners to come up with a different process for each community solar garden or different application forms for subscribers. So I know NSPI is on the call. Let's make a note to discuss that in our next weekly meeting and do a check-in on that, and we'll certainly be in touch with everyone once I have an update on that. With regards to the flat rate subscriber credit, I definitely hear you on that. We did a significant jurisdictional scan looking at all of the existing community solar garden models out there, especially in the United States. There is no one model, there is no right way, and for Nova Scotia, just given our climate, given various conditions, given that large-scale solar is new here, solar is more expensive. Large-scale solar right now is more expensive than wind or fossil fuels. And a big part of this program is to not put pressure on ratepayers, to not spread that cost amongst ratepayers. So a decision was made to stick with a flat subscriber credit over the long term. Really tough call, and I really hear what everyone's saying. It doesn't mean that it would be something that, wouldn't be considered at some point down the road.
Great, thank you for that, Julia. Roby.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. I guess I'm just going to beat the same drum, but I think as Joel said, an escalator on the PPA would be hugely material. It would allow the program to come in with all the PPAs at a lower rate up front. I work on projects in BC, New Brunswick, Quebec, and Nova Scotia right now. There's inflation rate escalators allowed, and actually in New Brunswick we have to bid with and without it, and the bid price on our PPA, with a 2% rate escalator or without it, is hugely significant, like in the range of 20 to 30% of the PPA rate. So when it comes to kind of making solar, trying to make solar more competitive today, that having that rate escalator would allow us to come in significantly lower today versus wind and fossil. But I guess the second point that I'd like to add on the the comparison there between wind and fossil is solar's new. Fossil's been around for a long time, and wind has a 10, 15 year head start. Everybody said ComFit was expensive when it came out. But the understanding was that COMFIT wasn't the end game. COMFIT was the stepping stone to get us to rate-based and green choice, where the PPA rates now from those larger wind projects are in the range of $60 or $70 a megawatt hour, which is hugely less than what COMFIT was at 131 10 years ago. So just keeping in mind, I guess, framing the community solar program is not the end game for solar. It's a stepping stone as the cost curve continues to decline for solar, and as hopefully larger projects are allowed in the future where we can obtain greater economies of scale. The solar sector, I think, is keen to step up and to continue to deliver more green and affordable renewable energy to Nova Scotians. But when we look at kind of the way the program is set up today with regards to the flat PPA, it really kind of makes it look a bit worse than it is. We've got a long way to come in terms of bringing it down. I think in the next 3-4 years, we're going to see huge decreases in what we're able to do for a PPA with solar. But I just kind of wanted to put that out there, I guess, in terms of the financing and capital cost side of things, where there's something's got to give. Julie, as you said, solar's not as cheap here as we all wish it was today. But we're not going to get to the cheap solar of tomorrow without a successful stepping stone program like community solar. So when it comes to ensuring this program is successful, just like COMFIT, it unfortunately needs to be subsidized, and that subsidy can be CapEx, it can be reduction in red tape and development costs, it can be OpEx, or it can be PPA subsidy.
I guess I do have.
Oh. I don't know who that was, but that's it for me.
Great, thank you for that, Roby. Glenn Boone.
Thanks again, David. A couple of comments are already made by others, so that's why I wanted to sit back for a sec. So obviously the agreement's having a flat rate over a 20-year term. That makes it difficult for projects to be successful. And the conversation around subscriber rate, I think, is pretty valid, and Julie, I think you recognize that, so that's a good conversation, I think. And I think our colleague from Lunenburg mentioned the ITC, so that's obviously a challenge for a true community solar project that doesn't have a group that could qualify for the ITC. And I know that's a federal issue more than provincial, but it might be something that the provincial folks could try to address with the federal folks, because having those tax credits obviously makes it a little bit more attractive, especially if you created a municipal corp or something like we would have to do to make this project work. There was so we actually had an application in, and it's deemed not complete, so I should have probably said that earlier. And one of the things, and I know it's not in this list, but one of the things that challenge a bit, which is on this list, is some conversation around the benchmarks. So the benchmarks for both capital and CapEx, but also the capital for operating. So but there's no established benchmarks for us to have to utilize. So we utilize some outside sources to develop both those numbers for us, right? So, and I'm happy to hear, and I think I understood that was part of this conversation today, was the programs of reevaluating, and benchmarks is a big part of what that review will include. And my question on that was benchmarks on both capital and operating. Is that the thought?
Yes.
Okay.
We use the benchmark for both CapEx and OpEx, yes.
Awesome. Okay, because that would be helpful to the program, and folks knew kind of what those benchmarks were at the outset, because it might stop some people from going forward if they knew what those benchmarks were, or it might help people to refine their application, obviously. The fixed rate, I know that was mentioned a few times. The one thing, and I know Dave, we said to keep it positive, so I'm trying to keep it there, but a lot of these projects, especially what we were looking at, would be potentially 7 megawatts, probably similar to Lunenburg and its partners. So it's a big capital investment, right? So somewhere between $20 and $25 million potentially. And the organizations are taking the risk, and the province is trying to work with Nova Scotia Power to make this all work. But the capital risk is being taken by the organizations or the company that's going to put the project together. But we're helping achieve the green energy and getting us off coal and oil and all those other things. And I'm not slamming coal because I came from a coal mining town, so I should qualify that for a second. But it's one of those things that a lot of the capital investment and the capital risk is being taken by others, which is going to help green the grid, if you will. So I think that's important to note. I'm not saying anything people don't already recognize. I just wanted to bring out the elephant in the room. And it will be really helpful to see what the new benchmarks look like. And the only other thing was, as part of our program, there's the equity deserving group. So we had some unofficial conversations with some folks in those groups. But what we had decided in our application was we were trying to look at it for the benefit of the folks that were within the community that would host the project. So when it talks about the subscribers and the mechanism for those, but we weren't just going to open it up to all kind of Nova Scotia Power customers in the community that would be impacted and hosting the project. We were still going to have equity deserving groups, but we were looking at folks that might be housing challenged or economically challenged. And we do that with our tax rate, like we have low income tax exemption. So that's how we were looking at it. But it's my understanding the program wants to make sure you've exhausted conversations with those other equity deserving groups. Is that that's my actual question at the end of all this? Because it does impact how you do your financials.
Do you want to take that one, Haruka?
So your question is like having a equity deserving group as part of the subscriber membership, and how does that affect the finance? Sorry, can you rephrase that for me?
Well, it's kind of connected to the finance. I'm saying it doesn't impact completely the financing, but the applications as a whole. So if I know the scoring, I mean, if you didn't say have Mi'kmaq connection or a Mi'kmaq community within your area, or you had other equity deserving groups similar, and we were looking at it from those that have the financial need. That was the way we were looking at our subscriber base. But the program is more or less saying, and I don't want to talk about specific applications, but for us, is that there wasn't maybe enough of that conversation with those other groups where we were looking at it from a financial need point of view. So does the application in the future maybe just get scored on who you've brought to the table as your subscribers, or do you still have to have had some of those equity deserving groups as part of your subscriber base?
Okay, thank you. I understood your question. It's so difficult to answer in one standardized way because it's very nuanced. So what the program really focuses on is, one is a partnership. We really encourage partnership. And then of course, so far, the projects that we have been approving is demonstrating a stronger partnership. For example, the Joel's project with the power bank, they have been in partnership with local nonprofit and local First Nations communities, and they're coming with such a meaningful partnership, and that's something that program really love to see. So of course, that's the way that even developer and the communities can work together. So that's something, of course, we love to see, and see them as a one of this successful way to do the project. The other aspect is the community benefits. So there are many offering the subscription to those who might benefit the most from this subscription is one way to expand the community benefits, but there is more way. You can highlight that through our projects, you will create this much number of jobs locally, or you will provide the opportunity for students to learn as a part of the project implementation, or it can be community benefits can take form in multiple ways. So I love to see how you come up with the community benefits plan. I think this is where even new ideas, new way of expanding community benefits can really come in, and we love to see in your application. So I think, yes, I kind of circled around, but yes, what I wanted to say is yes, subscription is one way, but I think we really love to see diverse ideas of expanding the community benefits through your project. I don't know if that answers your question.
And
No,
I
quite
could add
helpful.
that as well. Sorry, if you don't mind. There's a difference between your community engagement requirement as a part of your application and who you're offering subscribers to as well, or offering subscriptions to.
Yeah, we did a broad community engagement process, both online and a personal session, right? And we had lots of folks from lots of equity deserving groups as part of that, for sure. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Appreciate the clarity.
Great. Thank you, Glenn, and thank you, Julia. There's a question in the chat from Rochelle Owen, and it is it correct to say a building owner can't have a Nova Scotia Power account that has net metering and community solar subscription on it, or can they split consumption between the two programs? And does the community solar subscriber own the RECs and can claim them as 100% in Scope 2 emissions for no additional fee? Can one of the Nova Scotia Power folks answer that?
Sorry, Marwan here. I think that question is better directed to the net metering team at Nova Scotia Power. I'll put in their email there in the chat.
Great, thank you very much, Marwan.
I can weigh in as well. Subscriptions are per account, so you're correct. You can't, if it's one commercial account with Nova Scotia Power, you can't do half net metering, half community solar from within that account. And the RECs, oh, Dave, go ahead. Am I incorrect?
Great, thank you, Julia. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. And we've already addressed this, I think, but subscriber engagement and retention. What has your experience been like in recruiting and retaining subscribers? Are there insights on marketing, trust building, or pricing strategies? How are you addressing equitable access? And for example, targeting renters, low-income households, or underserved communities? Any questions or comments on this topic? Yes, Aviv, go ahead.
Hi again, everybody. I can jump in here. I know we've been through this a little bit already, so I don't want to regurgitate what other people have said before. But I think just regarding the 2 cents a kilowatt hour, what we've seen the most success on this side of the border in the US has been a percentage discount instead of like a percentage of the retail rate that Nova Scotia Power would charge those subscribers, instead of what's happening usually with fixed rates is that the utility ends up making more money as time passes because they're increasing their rates, on the retail rates to the subscribers, but they're only crediting, the 2 cents a kilowatt hour instead of, say, crediting the kilowatt hours or the real value of the kilowatt hours. And so I don't think the goal of the community solar program is to make Nova Scotia Power make more money. And so potentially, I don't know if the first round or the second round or a future round consider, instead of just a fixed 2 cents a kilowatt hour, having something that's tied to the retail power, basically. So just a thought.
Great, thank you for that. Dean.
With respect to subscriber engagement, for the Pine Tree Park, it was pretty straightforward because it was servicing affordable housing units that were under the control of New Dawn. For the next array, though, we've been in discussion with Clean Foundation a bit, and at this point, I think the only thing I can sort of say is that it's not as simple as you might think trying to target low income or underserved communities. So it's certainly something we're spending time on, and it's yeah, it's a little more complicated than I would have suspected at first anyways. But Clean's been a great asset and resource for getting some information on that.
Great, thank you, Dean. Sam.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So Sam Cheshire from Scope Development. I just wanted to probably ask Aviv a couple of extra questions there. Like, I understand, you know, you're doing a lot of these programs in the US, but I guess my question would be, how many of them are zero cost to subscribers? So, you know, I think people are focusing on that the 2 cents is diluted over time, but there's also no cost to sign up. So I feel like whether it's a 10% or a 20% discount, people will still take the discount because they're not getting any other discount anyway. So yeah, I wonder if we're focusing on the wrong part of the problem here. So yeah, I'm just curious to sort of hear whether or not, you know, obviously there are many other systems out there and a lot of them are subscriber based, but are you seeing any that have no fee to subscribers?
Yeah, so most of the community solar programs in the US are without cost. I would say excluding maybe Florida and Kansas. Majority of the Northeast and the Midwest community solar programs are all like zero fee based to subscribers. And I would say probably half of them have an LMI component to it and the other ones just don't. It's just all residential. I think the dilution happens when you go below the 10% discount. So for the retail rates right now in Nova Scotia, I think 2 cents a kilowatt hour is awesome. I think the problem is none of us know what's going to happen 5 or 10 or 15 years from now. And when especially residents and you know, as you go down kind of the socioeconomic level into like low and moderate income households, renters, people of that nature, if they just see that, you know, the retail rate has gone up, you know, let's say beyond the 20 cents a kilowatt hour mark, and now the savings look like it's a 3% savings or 5% savings or something of that nature, the engagement is going to start to wear off. And kind of, at least in the US, all of the programs that have swung below 10% basically became an all commercial play, because residents are not interested in saving 5% or 3% on their bills. It's not a monetary thing. It just sounds like not a lot of money, even when it sometimes is. It just sounds bad. Hence my recommendation of considering, you know, some minimum bar or minimum percentage or something of that nature.
Thank you for that, Aviv. So let's hear from Roby and Mace. We have some other people. So let's hear from Roby. We're very short on time, but we'll let these last 3 people go. And if anybody needs to hop off, obviously that's fine. But Roby.
Yeah, I just put a note in the chat there. It's just there's I think a few people have made mention that a flat subscriber rate with the retail power rate going up over time increases Nova Scotia Power's profits. I don't think that's actually the case. So it would be great if either Department of Energy or Nova Scotia Power could confirm this, because my understanding is that all PPAs are a fuel cost and fuel costs aren't rate based, and Nova Scotia Power makes their rate of return off rate basing assets. So just would be good to get some clarity there.
Great, thank you, Roby. Mason, do you want to introduce yourself and your involvement with community solar?
Yep, my name is Mason Baker. I'm Director of Technical Services with SWEB Development, so kind of handle the grid integration and electrical engineering for SWEB, who's an IPP in Nova Scotia. I guess my comment / question is kind of related to what Roby just said and the subscriber cost. Maybe someone more familiar with the regulatory framework of Nova Scotia Power and the revenue requirements could chime in, but there is that fuel adjustment mechanism where I think they can rate base, you know, exceedance in forecasted fuel costs, but I see this program, and correct me if I'm wrong, as kind of a hedge for Nova Scotia Power. So they're accepting solar PPA rates that are above their levelized cost of energy to generate, with the 2 cents off a residential bill. That's essentially costing them more to generate electricity, as well as generating less revenue from their customers. So I think part of the allure of Nova Scotia Power buying into a program like this is that hedge component, where in years 15 to 25, it's kind of a deal for them. So I wonder if we did, I just kind of an open question, but I wonder what their appetite would be to adjusting that flat rate. You know, would their revenue requirements or return requirements have to be looked at by the NSEB again? Or would this excess cost by, increasing credits to residential bills in year one just be rate based for non-subscribers at a later point?
Roby, do you have an answer to that? Any thoughts on that?
No, Mason just out-regulatoried me.
Okay. We'll take that input, Mason, and yeah.
I just said fuel adjustment mechanism, and that gets it.
Andrew, and then that'll be the last question or comment. Unless Dean, you have something to say as well.
Sure. So my name's Andrew Bagley. I'm CEO of Skylit. We actually became interested in this community solar project 4 years ago, actually, when it was first announced that it was going to happen. We actually had a site at that time where we planned to locate it. So I'd really there's a couple of things I want to say, really. One is, so we were immediately focused on the question of indexation of costs and how this is going to be problematic. Second thing was the 2 cents. Again, we thought that wasn't going to be enough of a discount to have a sustainable interest in the marketplace. I think the other thing was that whilst Nova Scotia Power is now, people say, oh, it's all about coal generation and carbon emissions. But give it 10 years' time, Nova Scotia Power will have done a good deal, I think, to clean up its act. And then not only, you don't need to have the argument to say, come with us, we have green power, because Nova Scotia Power has green power too. So this was another element that we felt that the 2 cent discount really was not a kind of sustainable model. And I have to say at that point, we kind of lost interest and left. And so, and perhaps my third point here has been dealt with since then, which is that, so one of the concerns we had was we were going to have to go through a good deal of analysis and work and significant expense, actually, of employing engineers to come up what we thought the cost of the installation was going to be in order actually to make a proposal to the minister for the price of, per kilowatt hour. And the concern we had really was that we had really no idea what that number would be. So we felt, effectively we were just kind of making a big bet to say, okay, so we do our numbers and we come up with, say, 13 cents for sake of an argument. And the minister says, 13 cents? What are you smoking? I'm not going to pay more than 8. And we just spent all this money and all this time trying to come up with a proposal where, and we have no idea what our target should be. So in a way, this kind of comes back a bit maybe to the kind of benchmarking where, it would actually be very useful as people making proposals to have some kind of ideas as to what boundaries would be acceptable, would not be acceptable. I mean, it's quite, as I say, we haven't kind of looked at this for 2 years really, because we felt this is just non-starters and we're not going to be interested. And maybe this has been addressed since then, but I'm just kind of chipping in. That's where we kind of came out, really. And it would be useful if that could be addressed.
Great, thank you for that, Andrew. So we'll give the last word to Roby. I just want to thank everybody for attending. And like I said, we'll be putting together a discussion paper for circulation and submission to Department of Energy. And I especially want to thank Haruka and Julia for joining us and being so open to answering questions. And I really appreciate that. And thanks to Nova Scotia Power, Net Zero Atlantic, and everybody else. I think we had a lot of good input, and I think it was a great discussion. So Roby, I'll let you finish things off.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave, Julia, Haruka, all the other stakeholders for coming on today. I just wanted to reiterate from Dave's earlier point that the Solar Nova Scotia Industry Committee is here ready to listen to anybody, any of the members that are would like somebody to talk to about the issues that they're facing with the community solar program. We really aim to be an advocate for industry and a liaison between all the different industry stakeholders and the province of Nova Scotia Power when it comes to the community solar program as well as other solar programs. So my email is in the invite there. It's rdouglas@naturalforces.ca. We have 5 other members of the industry committee. So we meet monthly and prioritize our advocacy efforts based on the feedback that we're getting from industry. So if we don't hear anything, we are either going to go back to our day jobs or make our own priorities, and we would much prefer to have more industry input to shape our direction. So please feel free to reach out at any time. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, everybody, we'll just give it a couple more minutes. There's still people arriving, so we'll start momentarily.
Hey, Dave.
Hey.
It's Chaz down in Clyde River,
How are things, Chaz?
Well, I woke today to the smell of smoke, and I thought there was a fire nearby, but I realized the Dalhousie fire is about 75 kilometers north by northwest as the crow flies with me.
Wow.
I'm deep in the woods, dude.
Yeah, stay safe out there.
It's been we had the fire here back in 23, the Barrington fire. So and it came within 2 kilometers of this pristine 147 acre property on the Clyde River I'm at right now. So it's a big concern for everybody in the province, these fires. There's no question whatsoever, and really appreciate the work the current guys and gals that are out there fighting this fire on a daily basis, right? So hopefully we get some damn rain, but there's no rain around, that's for sure.
Okay, well, more people coming in. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to the Nova Scotia Community Solar Roundtable discussion. We were really pleased to see the level of interest. I think we have around 140 people that signed up. I'm not sure how many will attend at the end of the day, but yeah, it's great to see the level of interest in this program. Can everybody see the presentation?
Yeah.
Slide's not working. I'm just gonna